Arguably, some people would have mixed feelings about Subnautica Below Zero. Upon its release date, the game already had some major expectations to meet due to its incredible predecessor, right? Sure, the game is not nearly as lengthy as perhaps the first one and not nearly as big in size as the previous version, but either way, in my eyes, I think it was a major improvement in quality, and I would take quality every time over anything else. The idea of playing anything below 60 FPS just sounds horrific to me, and finally being able to enjoy underwater nightmares that Subnautica has to offer sounds a whole lot better to me in 60 FPS. It doesn't make the game more terrifying as it already is, or anything along those lines. In fact, it will always keep you on your toes, or in this case, attached to your oxygen tank at all times, despite the given frame rate. Now, being able to pick this game up in 2024 and still have that enjoyable experience along the way, considering that survival games keep evolving and growing over time, is pretty dang impressive and important to acknowledge. Playing this on PlayStation 5 while sitting back and relaxing and not feeling like this game is too draggy in the storyline or even its tutorial is another cool feature to acknowledge. Perhaps another reason I love this game over the previous one is its full voice-over characters. Some games do get away with long dialogues, like Breath of the Wild, I guess, but I feel like as years go by, players simply don't have much time to read through long detailed conversations between the characters, and the voice acting in Below Zero is amazing in my opinion. Speaking of lacking dialogue, Medieval Dynasty. When I played this last year, I was stoked by how well the game played. Of course, at that given point, Medieval Dynasty had more than enough time to optimize itself, and either way, I genuinely had lots of fun with the game. The title is a bit grindy and requires very particular individual to keep playing, but for the price point and the content that's being given is worth every dime in my opinion. Let alone, let's also not forget the detailed system that is present within the game. Now, with that being said, long dialogues that appear in the game most of the time is perhaps the worst thing about the game. None of the characters are being voiced, and the worst part of it all is the fact that some of that dialogue could play a very significant meaning for its story, and yet I bet most of that gets ignored or simply skipped because of the complexity in the dialogue that isn't voiced. Icarus. Oh boy, this one almost hits personal for me, to be quite honest with you. When the game was firstly announced, we were promised a certain amount of content. First and foremost, the game was announced as an alien invaded planet, packed with all kinds of creatures and mutated behavior, introducing vehicles along with detailed open world to explore. Now, frankly, we got most of that back, but in the form of DLC. The original content from trailers was never delivered since day one. In fact, the world in Icarus felt very genetic and everything felt Earth-like. Now, personally, I have nothing against DLCs. Them introducing pet animals you could only acquire by buying DLC, that's to each their own. If that sounds like your gig, by all means go and buy it. I don't argue that because that was never promised in its initial stages. What did bother me, however, is the fact that the game had you buy additional DLC in order to experience the alien world that was already promised, because quite frankly the original map felt nothing like Alien-like. Same could be said about the vehicles. Right now we have no vehicles in the game, although they were featured earlier when the game was announced. It wouldn't surprise me if Icarus goes out of its way and releases them through a form of DLC, basically forcing everybody to buy them in the game. On the other hand, the amount of support and optimization we had received ever since its initial launch is very impressive. This game keeps climbing to the top with its consistent support and content that unfortunately requires additional payment, but nonetheless it is there. If you buy Icarus with all of its released content, meaning including every single DLC, the game would cost you nearly an arm and a leg. $180, and I'm pretty sure that would be a discounted price, honestly, which is absolutely insane in my opinion. Never had I ever imagined buying a game with everything included that would cost me more than $60 base dollars. I get it, developers need to get paid, but this price is tedious to me, and I just think this should have been avoided. I'm all for skin DLCs, but when you add items that literally impact your gameplay, that's a bit much, in my opinion. DayZ is another game that people seem to love and hate at the same time. Newcomers find this game so overhyped and ridiculously broken when it comes to its overall system. And to be fair, let's face it, after surviving an incredible amount of zombies, meanwhile maintaining your fever in check with hours of exploration just to die in a flying car glitch that's so frustrating to deal with and almost unavoidable, is pretty disappointing, especially in 2024. DayZ has already established a dedicated fan base from years and years ago, and those are the same people that basically keep DayZ alive to this day. DayZ has maintained respect amongst gamers for generations now, and it has truly earned it. This game is one of the originals, and quite frankly, if there's one enemy DayZ keeps facing day in and day out, it would be its own engine that the game is running on. It just simply at this point cannot handle the content that's being produced and just everything that DayZ is running on. What about you? Do you have any games that you personally love and hate at this given time? Let us know down below. Oh, and I guess subscribe if you're new to this channel. So this was your boy Roos, and I'm out. Goodbye.